can't accept the loss, I'm hard-headed. There's a little bit of madness to my method. Many falling off that fine line that I'm treading. I risk anything to be great, and I'm not letting nobody rob me of my victory. Number one, that's what I'm meant to be. When by any means, only thing that makes sense to me, I can make nice or make history. I got that dog in me, yeah, turn me up. Big energy, got the crowd going nuts. I got that dog in me, Annie up. I take on anyone, I don't need a one-on-one. I got that dog in me, yeah. I'm talking all bite, no bark. I could rip your squad apart. I got that dog in me, so what's up? Yeah. So what's up?
And how you doing, Rich? Thank you for joining us. I saw you pop up as soon as the intro came in. Yeah. This is Shots from the Sidelines. That is Seth. What's up, Rich? How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Outstanding. So, is it Rich or Rico?
Rich, Miss Jackson, if you're nasty.
Oh, there you go. We like it nasty.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah. So just a quick introduction. Rich is a writer for Blitz Media. He basically is a big time into NFL analysis. Basically has been writing articles for a few months now, at least. I want to say longer than that because I've been reading a lot of your stuff, man. It's been very good and very enjoyable. I told Seth about you. You're a Bears fan, which is A-okay with me.
That's why it's good.
And
now I get it.
Now you get it?
Yeah, now I get it. Bears fan.
But sure, by all means, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. Yeah, so Rich Santoro. My handle is says me or says underscore me one. I grew up in Chicago, lived out here my entire life. So grew up with the Bears. Was there in '85 when they pulled it off. The hard part is that's the only celebrities we got in Chicago is the '85 Bears because no one's come along to really replace them. So I've been obviously following the sport forever, and about a year, 2 years ago, I really kind of went deep into the analytics side of it, just on my own. I put together a video series. It's on YouTube where I kind of do a fact-based approach on the greatest running back of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the driver for that was trying to ascertain where does Walter Payton really fit in the hierarchy. So from there, I said, you know what, let me get on to X because I didn't have any social accounts. So let me get on to X and let me kind of plug my videos. And, you start making posts and meeting people. And, I start sharing some of my ideas or the way I like to post my content with, analytics and data-based. And that caught on with a lot of people, like yourself, for example. And so you just kind of get people that you can interact with regularly. I connected with Ryan over at Blitz Sports Media, told him I'd be happy to write for him and do my thing on there. So that's been fun. It's been a couple of months, like you said, trying to make it data oriented, fact based. Everyone's got an opinion, and if we're going to go by opinions, I'll just use my own. But if we can, layer some data in there and kind of substantiate it, that's kind of where I'd come from on it.
And I definitely understand that because if you have followed up on some of my posts and stuff, I'm very opinionated on a lot of things. And everything. Like I literally, when I found a couple of your articles, I sent them over to Seth and I was like, look, dude, this dude really puts it down in depth.
Yeah. Good stuff.
And I was like, if you really like your last article that I remember reading was one where you're talking about receiver matchups. Mm-hmm. And you're going really deep into the way the defenses are and also how you think that offenses were going to handle it. Now, when you're talking about NFL analytics, what really got you into really looking into that side of what you're doing?
Well, my line of work is I work in quality management as a director of quality in the medical device industry. So data breakdowns and analytics are essential to the way I think. So, again, going.
Oh,
yep.
Hope he'll come back with us.
Yeah, well, eventually, and I was getting into it too, Rich.
Yeah, speaking of analytics, that's what basically every team is going by these days. When you talk about fourth down situations,
mm-hmm.
Just how the numbers have just kind of dictated, whether to go for it, not go for it.
Right.
It used to be more of a feel for these coaches. And now it just seems like they just follow the formula.
Well, that and if you ever really watch, like whenever you see a coach and everything, and he's about to make up that big decision, I guess Dan Campbell is probably the, well, not the latest example, but he definitely is someone that is someone that you really think about that does this. Yep.
Sorry about that, guys. Technical difficulties. So, I think I was talking about, it's my line of work. I get into the analytics. And so if you have a question, how can you find the data and process that data in a way to answer the question? So, when I started going, okay, who is the best at this? Or what does that mean if these two guys run into each other? What can the data tell me as a lead into drawing my conclusion? So that's just how I think. I want fact-based analysis. Doesn't mean it's the absolute truth. It's more like indicator, hey, I think this guy's better because under these circumstances, the numbers show that he's done X, Y, Z. So I'm always, whenever I ask a question, I'm always trying to find a way to answer that question with some data to back it up.
I'm guessing you're probably a big fan of the movie Moneyball.
Yeah, that was good stuff. Absolutely.
It is a great movie.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't really heard much about analytics until that movie and everything the Oakland A's did. But now analytics are just so prevalent in every sport.
And when you briefly dropped, we were like, hey, let's carry on this because, in today's NFL and just about every sport, you really have a guy that is such as yourself that looks into the numbers of things and they'll look over it and be like, okay, what are my odds of this actually? What 4th and 2, 25-yard line? I want to go. I'm down by 4. Should I kick a field goal, hope for the best, or go for it, try to get it, going for a touchdown with like 5 minutes to go? So
absolutely right. And this actually goes back. You see those like Girl Scout cookie sheets that coaches cover their mouths with. So some of their decisions are automated on those sheets. They can just kind of look conditional and make a choice because the analytics have already been kind of crunched. My only thing about the true approach to analytics is there's some standard questions, and so you can get some standard data to answer it. But really, a lot of analytics is just answering a question. So you might say, well, I got a very unique situation. I need, you can't necessarily crunch the numbers on the fly in such a complex way. So that's why, analytics isn't going to always give you the perfect result. There's like, well, a lot of people don't believe in analytics. It doesn't work because it didn't help these guys in this situation. Well, analytics isn't just looking at data and going from there with the bigger number. It really is trying to comparing different data sets to understand what you're trying to get at. So, in the moment, they've got some canned analytics, but in complex situations, they probably don't have what they need to use the data in that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So, Rich, you kind of just opened up another question, not football related, but what is your favorite Girl Scout cookie?
Definitely I can't even think what they're called, but the peanut butter ones and the chocolate
coated. Tag-alongs.
Yeah, those are really good.
How about you?
What was the peppermint one?
Oh, that is Thin Mints.
Yes,
that is. Yeah, I'm classic Thin Mint all the way.
Yeah, I think they have like an Oreo version of that nowadays that you can buy, but it's not like the Girl Scout cookies.
No, that's correct. So, myself, of course, if you can't tell, I'm a Bears fan. My buddy here, Seth, we've known each other for 10 years now?
About 10 years.
Yeah. And this was really his idea to actually start up this podcast. And he's a Falcons fan.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like being a Bears fan for the past, 20 years. I mean, similar, similar courses we've been on.
Is it? So big question for you is, a lot of people have asked me, like, how did you become, because I lived in basically South Carolina almost my whole life. And a lot of questions people ask, how did you become a Bears fan? Blah, blah, blah. I tell them my story enough. Of course you're in Chicago. So, that's a giveaway right there. Is your family like all Bears fans? Is there like,
I was born on the West Side. My family is from the West Side, near Taylor Street, Tri-Taylor area. And, I moved out in the suburbs when I was younger, but, we're Chicago born and bred. And, so Bulls fan, even in the 80s when they were terrible, I was a Bulls fan. In the 70s when the Bears were terrible, in the 2000s when they were terrible, I've just always been a Bear fan. But that said, I'm also, I root for teams because I know how good they're doing, how good their players are, and if the numbers, say, hey, wow, these guys got it together. They've got a great offensive scheme. Right now I kind of favor San Francisco and Buffalo. These are kind of two teams that caught my imagination. I like the way they play. I love looking at the numbers behind the performance for Josh Allen, because he really does the lion's share for that team. He stands out more for his team than other quarterbacks do for theirs. Even if he doesn't have the overall same results, because I've created a metrics called impact analysis. So it's like, how does their performance translate to win-loss vis-a-vis the strength of their line, the strength of their defense, the strength of the skill positions, and you adjust the score. And so that, hey, a guy with a good performance becomes much higher on the impact rating because you're factoring in those other things.
Now, that's interesting you bring up both those teams. Me and Med have gone back and forth this season talking about maybe both of those teams kind of missing their window. How do you feel looking at your numbers, analytics? Do you feel like they still have a good chance of getting a title with the current lineups?
Yeah, I mean, I think Buffalo's kind of out of their window, because I mean they've really kind of done some roster changes, some main players that are different. Their defense has gone through changes. Von Miller doesn't produce the way he did. I think Allen is exceptional. I think he's the QB2 in the league, and he can carry them so far. I don't think he can win a championship by himself. So of course there's more than just him on the team. So I don't want to overplay it, but under the circumstances, I don't think they can win beyond maybe second round.
Do you think the Amari Cooper edition kind of bumps them up a notch?
I like it. I like them having a real wide receiver one. Diggs was obviously a wide receiver one. He had his issues. I'm kind of glad he moved on. He seems to be doing well in Houston, so God bless him. But yeah, so they're Shakir really isn't. He's more of a utility receiver, and they got some deep ball threat with I can't think of Coleman. Yeah, and so Amari is your true wide receiver one. I think he was being wasted in Cleveland, to be honest with you.
Yeah, sure.
So I think that's a great addition. Will it help? Absolutely. Is it enough? Probably not. But then touching on San Francisco, I think they're still in their window. It's just everyone's kind of hurt right now.
Yeah, they're beat up.
So if those guys are healthy, I guess I hear that all the time with teams. Well, if he stays healthy, that's going to be But
loss last week with Ayuk going down.
Yeah, and I mean that it kind of really set the stage, because a lot of people, like me personally, I'm still on San Francisco's bandwagon of saying, hey, they're going to make the playoffs. Yeah. And a lot of people, they're like, man, they're pretty beat up right now. And now I'm starting to actually say the same thing. I mean, lucky for them, Mason has just been so good for him in the backfield. He'll be back in a second, folks.
Yeah, I really don't feel like they've missed McCaffrey that much. I mean, obviously, his ability as a receiver is unmatched.
Sorry about that. I keep getting a call that comes through, kicks me off. Sorry about that.
You're all right. You're a very popular man.
Yeah, we were just talking about how Mason has filled in so admirably for McCaffrey.
My audio's down. Let me come back in.
You're good.
So yeah, just really impressive. A guy that was, I'm trying to remember, was he undrafted or a late round draft?
It was late round draft, I believe.
I mean, just unbelievable job.
Yeah.
It just seems like that system, whoever they plug in at running back, always seems to be productive.
Yeah, and kudos to John Lynch for being such a great GM. Yeah. I mean, he's been just killing it.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that we were actually discussing, or not really a question, was a statement to where Mason was able to actually be plugged in right where Christian McCaffrey went, and has seemingly, for the most part, I mean, he was number 2 in rushing as of last week. I haven't been able to really look at the numbers this week, but I mean, still amazing. And I think, for the most part, San Francisco's offense hasn't missed a beat. It's just their defense hasn't been up to par. You think that's going to change when Drew Greenlaw comes back?
Well, from my perspective, I mean, he's obviously a key piece of that. But again, one guy doesn't do it. But it's going to help. I mean, they're kind of big play. There's big play offenses. They're big play defense. They play well, and they give up a big play. That's the thing. I'm kind of like down on them. It's you'll get sacks, you'll get interceptions. I actually have their defense on my fantasy. They do well, and then all of a sudden the points go crazy because they just give up some big plays, and then I'm like, oh, what the heck happened? So maybe having that extra guy, that extra talent in Greenlaw will kind of fill in that gap. Whatever the letdown is that lets the big plays happen, maybe that will make a difference.
So, seeing you kind of open up fantasy, and we're kind of winging it right now because we're going to slide into. I told him that we would be talking about, of course, Tennessee. He's a big Tennessee fan. I'm an Alabama fan. We lost. So in a little bit, we're going to have some music play. Got awful music, but we actually got a question, and
Yes.
I think all three of us can hit up on this. Is the way that professional sports was ran in the 70s and 80s better than today by holding players accountable for the reckless conduct?
I'll let Rich answer that one first.
Yeah.
So if I understand that, was it better in that how they held them accountable back then or nowadays?
I'm thinking it's saying how they were. Was it better as far as how they were able to hold them accountable in the 70s and 80s as opposed to today?
Huh. I mean, it feels like today there's a lot more rules and a lot more enforcement and a lot more fouls and for quote unquote misconduct. So I don't remember as many roughing the passer penalties back in the day. And
that's one thing that just annoys me is how careful they are with quarterbacks these days. It seems like since Brady's retired, they've kind of laxed on it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But when Brady was still playing, if you even touched him, it's personal foul.
Yeah.
And the more high priced they become, the more they want to protect them. I mean, that's what's the driver behind a lot of these penalties is in the way they're interpreting roughing is because hey, we got a fucking $60 million quarterback. You need to. So I think they're talking to the league and saying you got to protect our guys. So I don't know that it's football driven. I think it's personally just a business thing to protect quarterbacks. They're over. I think quarterbacks are overvalued. I've done a couple articles on that. You can't do it without the help. And one great quarterback obviously adds, but they don't do it by themselves. I look at some of these first round draft choices who are getting paid $55-60 million, and they're not able to execute because all the money's going to them, and they're not building up a whole roster.
Right.
So that's what's driving the enforcement nowadays. That going back to that question. In the 80s, especially the 70s, but I think the rules didn't get put in place until they did stuff like Wilbur Marshall knocked out. I can't think of the quarterback. It was Hippel's backup, but
I remember when Chuck Bedrock knocked out Frank Gifford in the middle of the game. Hit him with the cutthroat afterwards. So.
That's right. Yeah. So I mean, so those guys were actually doing the plays that created some of the rules. So I don't know that enforcement back then was better or more stringent than what we've got today.
Yeah.
So what Latina and Callie is saying is contact outside the game if they got arrested or touched drugs. In my honest opinion, it's handled better now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Back in the 70s and 80s, there wasn't social media. There wasn't like a person holding a camera, or there wasn't like video surveillance everywhere to where these people would actually get caught. I mean, case in point, Ray Rice. I mean, he knocked out his wife in the middle of an elevator, and it was caught on a security camera, and he immediately got released. Same thing with, in some cases it doesn't work. I mean, we got Alvin Kamara doing his yearly workouts over in Vegas by stomping on people, and and you got
that was his entourage. Come on,
that was his entourage. Yeah.
Realistically, Lawrence Taylor may not have been the guy he is if they were cracking down on.
Exactly.
Off the field behavior. I mean, he was known as a wild partier. He did cocaine like crazy.
He would send prostitutes to his opponent's hotel rooms. And I mean, he definitely was like, if there's someone that probably should have got cracked down back then, it was him.
Yeah. I mean, like, for instance, the receiver for the Lions, Williams, just getting the 2-game ban for PEDs, just kind of in the middle of the season. I
think they really just strapped it down the last 10 years. And I mean, Greg Hardy had a pile of guns that he choke slammed his girlfriend on. I mean, it's stuff like that in the 70s and the 80s, you probably didn't hear it. I mean, Superfly Jimmy Snuka killed his girlfriend. And I mean, it's
Yeah,
you know,
no,
no,
I got to imagine it was a little society in general didn't have it that
exactly.
way.
It's different, I guess.
Yeah.
But that was actually a really good question, and it is from Snowman Multimedia, who is also part of the Shady Sports Network that we are a part of. So getting back to football and some of the trades and everything, we weren't unable to actually do anything last week. Like I've contacted you and I told you I was down in Florida. Basically, my wife had a thing with breast cancer survivors. So we went down there and I went down to support her. So we didn't do a show last week. So now we're going to be touching up on some of the trades that have happened. I guess we could do buy and sell on this if you want.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Let me go ahead and
I'm going to drop just for one more second. I'll be right back.
You're good.
All right, I'll see you.
Yes, sir. As he sometimes we agree with it and sometimes we don't. This is buy or sell. All right, buy and sell is basically when we actually weigh on some of the trades that have happened. And of course, there's been 3 major receiver trades. At least 2, and then one that would have been major about 5 years ago. But the first one on tap, we already kind of talked about it. We're talking about Amari Cooper to the Bills on a grade of, say, F to A. Where would you rate the Amari Cooper trade?
Man, I think it's a solid B. I mean, obviously, Amari Cooper isn't, a front line, just stud receiver anymore, but I still think he's really solid. And playing for the Browns, with Deshaun Watson, obviously nobody's going to look that good. So going over to a new quarterback and Josh Allen, we saw it last week. He scored a touchdown, first week out there, not even knowing the offense. So I think that's a big improvement, considering they didn't really have much outside of Shakur and Coleman. So I give it a solid B.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and agree with you. I'm going to give it probably a B plus because I like how Rich was talking about it, and we'll just move on to the next player after this. I like what he brings to the team. The fact that, I didn't really get to comment on it when he was with Cleveland. The fact that he was a 1,000-yard receiver in Cleveland, it speaks volumes by itself. I think he was doing a pretty stand-up job when teams could actually lock in on him.
Yeah.
And he was all they had in the passing game. I know David Nayuk was doing a little bit better. And of course they brought in Judy from Denver, but that's not a ton. No. And, him going to Buffalo was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to him.
Oh yeah. For him, it's a dream come true. I mean, this is kind of the end of his career coming up. I mean, what they give up, a 3rd round 25 pick and then
a 6th round pick or a 7th. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for Cleveland, it's also a good trade because you're going nowhere this year. You might as well get some compensation, some decent compensation. And a 3rd round pick, I think, is pretty solid for them.
Very, very solid. So you gave it a B. I'll say B as well, even though I'd probably say B plus.
I'm back. Sorry, but I'm with you guys. I gave it a B. I think, when you got a quarterback who's arguably the worst quarterback in the league in Cleveland, thrown to you, you're not going to be able to produce. So for him, it's a great chance to kind of make a last run, like you said, and then they get some pieces to try and rebuild.
And last year, we kind of saw his game go up once Flacco came in and played towards the end of the season. We saw him start putting up some numbers. So I think it's just been Watson that's just been holding him back.
No, I agree. I agree with that 100%. In fact, I believe that the Watson era in Cleveland's over.
I think we might not see Watson in the NFL again. Possibly.
I think the universe is done with him.
Next player up on the slide is Devontae Adams, of course, coming in from Raiders to the New York Jets for basically just to hook up with his BFF from Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers. This is one of those deals where I believe it was also a 3rd round pick.
Yeah, conditional 3rd round pick.
Could be a possible 2nd round pick if they do like some magic, which I don't see is going to happen. I think it's like AFC. He has to be on the starting roster for an AFC championship, I think, and it could go up to like 2.
Yeah, something like that.
Anyway, we didn't really get to see a whole lot in this past week when they were playing the Bills, I believe. What,
The
am I-
Bills?
was it the
I can't remember who it was. I know they
Anyway,
lost.
I know. Yeah, no, they took an L.
Oh,
So,
Steelers.
the Steelers.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. Yeah. So, what's your ideas on that? I mean, I look at it from a financial standpoint too. Is that they're just at this point they're going to be screwed.
Is Rich still with us? I'll let him go first.
He's here, Rich.
Oh yeah. Well, I like Devontae Adams. He obviously was kind of in the same boat that we talked about with Amari. You got a quarterback situation that's not favorable. He's kind of wasting away out there. So he's looking for something. I just don't know that New York is the answer. Because I think that Rodgers, while he's still kind of a mid-tier quarterback, he's nowhere near the peak he used to be at, and essentially he's washed as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that
And,
game last week, I mean, that really was disappointing. You had the new offensive coordinator, the new acting interim coach, and they seemed like they had some juice that first quarter and a half. And it's like Russell Wilson found his game in the second half. It was just, it wasn't even close.
He took a time machine back to Seattle.
And even if you look at Devontae, both last week and the week before, he had 9 targets and he only caught 3 and 4 passes, respectively. So he's down at like 44, 33%, catch rate. Not all of those are passes that he missed or dropped, but he's not able to get the production that we expect from him. So it's just, it's not a good situation.
I mean, that's one thing that I personally drafted Garrett Wilson in my fantasy league. And it's been a big disappointment going from Zach Wilson to Aaron Rodgers. You thought you were going to get this big boost in production. And it seems like, if anything, his production's gone down a little.
Yeah.
So, I mean, adding Adams, that's going to take even more away from Wilson because Rodgers is going to force feed Adams.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said earlier, you look at the financial obligations that they'll have. I think they said that they restructured the contract where he could actually get released at the end of the year. So this is basically an all-in
rent a player.
Rent a player, yeah. And also at the same time, Devontae Adams is 32. Like he's more towards the twilight than what Cooper is, which I think he was in his late 20s. So, I mean,
what do you guys give us as far as a grade?
I give it a C+. I'm not too excited for the Jets because it doesn't really feel like it's going to move the needle at all. I mean, last year it felt like Aaron Rodgers, they had him set up on this pedestal. He was running out there with the American flag. Here comes Captain America. And 4 plays later, he's down. And I think in a lot of ways that 1 year you're chipping away the rust and everything, but that's a lot of rust that accumulates over time. And I think after this season, Aaron Rodgers is gone. Kind of like Rich said, he's washed. Yeah. So I just don't see him playing after this year.
Rich, what kind of grade do you give this deal?
Yeah, I guess, it doesn't hurt or make them worse. So it's not like it's a D or an F or anything, but it certainly doesn't boost them. It doesn't help Devontae, in his last run here. So a C, I guess, is appropriate. C-.
Yeah. I'm same boat as you guys. I mean, I just feel like he said earlier, they're just kind of dead in the water. I mean, just no juice. And AFC is just too tough.
It is. And the last one that we're actually going to talk about is, of course, happened earlier today. Or it was yesterday. And that would be DeAndre Hopkins getting sent from Tennessee to the Chiefs. DeAndre Hopkins sent out a tweet earlier today thanking the Titans for letting him go to the Chiefs. This is a move, of course, that I think is pretty decent. I'll be honest. I'm not really high on DeAndre Hopkins. Of course, I think that his prime's past him too. But you look at that receiving core and the way it's been kind of ravaged this year. They brought in Hollywood Brown. He was going to be the number one. Solid pickup, gets hurt, IR. Then Rashee Rice comes, he's actually blowing up. He's getting like 10, 12 targets a game.
Yeah, amazing
and gets his knee tore up. So this is a desperation move because let's be honest, they don't have shit.
Yeah, even your boy Schuster's out, and I know you love some Schuster.
Oh, I love some Schuster. Let me tell you.
I'm almost at the point, Rich, where I feel like the Chiefs can just roll anybody out there, and they're still going to win. I mean,
it is. This is why I say, I was kind of with a couple of years ago. Everyone loves Mahomes, so I don't have to love him, and I was kind of down, dubious about him, but I'm like, you know what? I have to give up. The guy is just incredible.
That's
He's
how I,
the only
that's how I am.
the only quarterback playing at a peak level who's in the all-time discussion, right? There's great ones like Allen, but Mahomes is in the all-time discussion.
Yeah, and the fact that he's leading the league in interceptions right now, I believe, more than touchdowns.
They're still undefeated, So and in terms of the trade, I like it because it gives him a veteran receiver. He hasn't had a veteran receiver in a while.
True.
Someone who maybe, because that's what Kelsey brings. He's savvy, he's smart, he knows how to get between the zones when the play starts to break down. So if Hopkins can bring some kind of veteran savvy and work with Mahomes, I think it could be a difference for him. It can boost them, and not that they need it because they're already kicking ass. But like you said, even Rashid Rice before he got injured, he's a relatively newer guy. Worthy's in there; he's a rookie. So this gives a veteran receiver that I think Mahomes and a creative coach like
Andy Reid.
Andy Reid, sorry. So a creative coach like him can take advantage of. And so maybe I give it a B+ because I think some interesting things can happen.
Since you're a numbers guy, just curious because I've been fascinated by the drafting that Kansas City has done the last several years. Me and Med have talked about it. If you just look at their drafts, just the value they're getting in the mid to late rounds is just insane.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen a front office this good since, was it Ozzie Newsome in Baltimore?
Oh God, yeah. When he would, other than quarterback, he did great.
Yeah.
So
man, I mean, that team is mostly, draft picks. It's not like they bring in a lot of big name free agents.
And I think when you don't have to play the quarterback sweepstakes anymore because you've got Mahomes, you're able to really, they spend their time, they invest their time and energy, their thought power. They say, what else do we need? And they kind of maybe go into a deeper analysis on other things, whereas a lot of other teams are still trying to find their own Mahomes,
Yeah, and we haven't talked about Pachenko going out.
I was going to say a lot. Yeah, exactly.
Jeez.
But you look at what they brought in right afterwards. Other than Clyde Edwards or Walaire, they're pretty solid outside. I guess he's okay, but
Hunt's been doing a great job.
Yeah.
Hunt's just that guy that everybody brings in once their running back gets hurt.
They're like, hey, go get some Hunt. So just quickly with their team and everything, kind of like touching up on what Rich said and everything, is he's correct on the fact that they got the guy. Let's be honest, a lot of people always do the what if, with the Bears as far as who we got instead, which was Mitchell Trubisky. I was more on board with Deshaun Watson, of course, before what happened in Cleveland, but that's who I wanted us to get. And everyone's like, man, could you imagine who if you got Patrick Mahomes? And like you kind of said, they did their homework on the kid. Yeah. And they knocked it out of the park. This is a guy that is playing right now that a lot of people consider to be a top 10, if not top 5 quarterback in NFL history.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
So,
if you look at the history of Texas Tech quarterbacks, it's not exactly
sparkling.
Yeah, great list of NFL prospects.
Would you agree to say that the guy that was the biggest athlete that came out of Texas Tech was probably Michael Crabtree before this?
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then like Rich said, they were able to really focus on other areas. Like for instance, they needed a running mate for Chris Jones. Boom. They got Kalafdis from Purdue. They were able to draft someone like Ladarius Sneed, who isn't with the team anymore, but he was huge last year. OJ McDuffie, you just go ahead and name them. And they're doing it at the same time where people said, like with New England, you're not supposed to do it in the salary cap era. And here they are, they're doing it, and they're doing it really well. And, congratulations to them. I can't really hate them. I just wish that we were like them.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
And the kicker is, it's like, how tough the AFC is. We all talk about that. They're the dominant conference, but even that is dominated by the Chiefs.
Exactly.
It's just so the NFC it's a sad state.
Real quick, Rich, while we still have you, so AFC, we're talking about who is the team you think can give them a fight in the AFC Championship? Who's the team you have?
So I think I'm going to go with Baltimore on this one. I wrote an article before the season where I was like, this edition of Henry it's
Oh my
what's
god.
going to unlock the offense.
Oh
So
my god.
I predicted they're gonna slow down their RPOs. They're gonna go to more play action, use Henry to run so that the play action's got some gravity, and then now you can develop Lamar's passing game, because he's always been a fair passer, but not great. He was a
Hmm.
big threat with his legs, and he still is, but he's able to leverage the way the defense has to account for Derrick Henry to improve his passing game. He's throwing 4 touchdown passes in a game. He's getting 300 yards plus. He's got what, 1 interception only. So I mean, he's been really performing in the passing game the way he's never done before.
Yeah, it's been
And
unbelievable.
I really think that complementary football that they're getting out of leveraging Henry is the difference maker. And so they're the number 2 team that has a shot to dethrone the Chiefs.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, their defense isn't exactly what it's been the last
Right.
several years,
Mhm.
but offensively, they're just putting up tons of points. And Henry, I mean, I was wrong about Henry going into the season. I thought he was pretty much done or close to
Yeah.
done.
After the first game, you look like you're right.
Well, I had no idea that he dropped like 25 pounds in the off season. I mean, he just looks phenomenal out there and still has that elite speed at that size.
Yeah, I was worried about their, they weren't their play action pass, for example. If you watch those first 2 games, it's like this lazy 3 yards apart. So they
Mhm.
weren't in their groove, but
Mhm.
they kind of hit their stride. They're making the plays now. And like I said, their RPO ratio has been reduced by about 20%. So they're putting less of the onus on the run option with Lamar, and he can focus on the passing game. And they've upped their play action. I mean, that's probably up another 15-20% from their typical year. So this is a change in the offensive scheme, and it's really working. And
Yeah.
and I, kind of plugging my article, going back to it, the one I wrote, I highlighted that a lot of great old school backs in year 9 and 10 had some of their best years, and I think Henry's the kind of guy that's going to have a great 9th season, which he is. So, he's a throwback. He's that kind of big, all-purpose power back. But he's also fast.
Mhm.
He's not the utility back that you see a lot today, like an Eckler or
Like
something
Austin
like that.
Eckler, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think he was made to have a big 9th season, kind of throwing back to Peyton and Barry Sanders and
Yeah.
some of those guys.
I think we're so used to seeing that age 30 be a big drop off for guys. It's just so, weird to see a guy just thriving at that age this year. I
Mhm.
mean, Aaron Jones is another one, 29 or 30 years old, that's having a great season.
Right. Yeah, there's a few, because even last year, Mostert, I think he was 31. He led the league in rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's moments. There's some guys that can do it. It's obviously not universal, but yeah. And this year's been a resurgence of the run game.
Yeah,
Very true.
I mean, you got wide receivers going down left and right, but the running backs have, for the most part, stayed healthy outside of maybe Pacheco. But what do you think, Matt? Do you think the Ravens are the only ones that can give them a real threat?
I think with what you just saw with the trades and everything, I mean, you could possibly. I wasn't really sold on the Ravens at the beginning of this year, because I really felt like, there's a reason why there's only 2 players that have ever beaten Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, and that was Tom Brady and Joe Burrow. And, that's just one of those deals that I really kind of look at it. And, they know me personally, I don't believe in Lamar as being the guy that can actually lead you to a Super Bowl. I think he needs the people around him to help him lead them to a Super Bowl. And Derrick Henry, I mean, coots to him. I mean, he's got a much better offensive line blocking for him now. They finally got the receivers. I'm still waiting for Tez Walker to go out there and just blow it up one good time. But when I first this season first started, the team that I went with was the Houston Texans.
Yeah, a little bit disappointing with them.
The last couple games, yes, it's been a little disappointing, but I mean that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And I mean,
you had Nico Collins just balling out
and then getting hurt.
Yeah, so that slowed him down a little bit. But I mean, Mixon's playing out of his mind right now. So I mean, I wouldn't throw dirt on them. I still think they have a really good team, but I think they're still a couple years away.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good point, calling them out. They are a team. Maybe not as much so much as Baltimore. Although the defense is probably a little bit better than Baltimore. So that's a good additional call out there to
Mhm.
say who can challenge. Actually, I think they're a better team than Kansas City on paper,
Yeah.
but it's that's why they play the game, though, right?
Yes, sir. And so I'm going to move us along because we're hitting the 40-minute mark and we got a football game later today. So I'm going to go ahead and, Rich, I'm going to apologize for this. But we're going to hear some, God, I can't believe I'm doing this.
Rich like college football?
I guess we will after this. Okay, that's enough. I can't do it.
I never
I
get
can't.
tired of it, dude.
I'm glad that one of us definitely is not tired of it. Just real quick, someone is asking me about if I have a Cash App or anything. I'm not Shady Sports Network by himself. I'm actually Shots from the Sidelines. So I am just a show that is on the network. And I'm going to get to one of your questions you asked earlier after we
Maybe your shady shots from the sideline.
Shady Shots from the Sidelines. That'd be a good tagline. So of course, when I bring this up, for 15 years, basically Tennessee was Alabama's doormat, and it is what it is. Every week that I knew that the third Saturday in October was coming up, I knew I was going to go ahead and write a W in that column. But for the last 3 years, dude, congratulations. Two out of 3 is not bad, is how Meatloaf would say. And, it's 24-17. It was a really good, back and forth game. And, I mean, I'll let you take it away on this one, dude.
Yeah, it was a little bit sloppy, especially the first half. I mean, you had Tennessee basically doing nothing on offense, and then you had Alabama not taking advantage of the turnovers, 3 turnovers in the first half. And Milroe just wasn't on his game the other night. Mm-hmm. And he's had a couple bad weeks since that Georgia just breakout where everybody basically said, this is the Heisman favorite right here. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, man. It just seems like they're not rolling him out as much, not giving him as much freedom to run the ball, which I think is his biggest attribute.
I agree.
But, obviously Ryan Williams, the stud freshman, people have been kind of clamping down on him the last couple of weeks because he is the main weapon. And the running game, you just don't see Alabama not use their running backs like this new coach is doing. They just use them, maybe 5 to 6 carries a game. And you got 2 really good running backs in Jam Miller and Justice Haynes. I'm sorry. So I don't know. I think just with DeBoer, they're going to have to find their rhythm. And it seems like it's running out of time because they already have 2 losses. But I don't know. I mean, Tennessee just did enough to kind of skate by because Nico has been kind of hitting the, I guess, sophomore slump, even though he's a redshirt freshman. He just hasn't been playing great. But the second half, he did enough, just to kind of get him over the hump. And, like you said, a hard-fought game, a rivalry game. I mean, it's never going to be like it was with Saban again, where you're winning 15 straight. But I think it'll be a rivalry that goes back and forth, hopefully for the next several years. Rich, do you follow college football, SEC at all?
Yeah, college ball has always escaped me.
He's probably dozing off this
I
conversation.
don't have much to contribute there.
Well, I mean, when we talk about how this pertains to the NFL, I think Milroe a couple weeks ago after that Georgia game.
Oh, he was projected as like number 1 pick.
Yeah, like top 5 pick.
Yeah.
And now I think its stock has kind of slipped a little bit. But I think every team has to have, another weapon. And when teams shut down your number 1 weapon, you got to have somewhere else to go. And Alabama's got to find that.
And touching up on what the game was, it was a defensive struggle for the first half. And Rich, we'll try to speed this part up because then we'll go.
Do your thing.
But as far as like the game went and everything, it was a defensive struggle from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. It just back and forth. No ball movement other than 7 points in the first half. Mm-hmm. Now, when the second half came up, it was like, I wouldn't say floodgates opened up, but it actually was an entertaining game. There was a lot of drama. There was a lot of, like what's about to happen. And, of course, Tennessee fans, being as classless as they are, when they go ahead and tear down the goalpost again.
I really didn't understand that. I mean, you just beat them 2 years ago, so
Yeah.
why rush the field and tear down the goalpost?
Because that's what y'all do.
But yeah, it's Alabama, so I guess they have to.
Yeah, I reckon.
But yeah, I mean, it was an entertaining game, and maybe a little more entertaining than the next one we want to talk about, Texas and Georgia.
Oh, which was not entertaining at all.
No.
For the first half, at least the first half. Towards the last quarter, it was a little bit better, but still.
Yeah, I mean, Texas scored a few touchdowns and made it a little bit interesting, but never got really close. It was never in doubt.
It was 23-0 at halftime.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just 100%. And you know what really confused me is that Coach Sarkisian pulled Quinn Ewers after he was just getting destroyed. At one point, he was just getting destroyed. They insert Arch Manning for like one drive, and then they pull him out and put Ewers back in, and they're like, "Oh, we think we should go for the veteran quarterback." It just didn't really feel like
a desperation.
It did, and you know, hats off to Georgia. I mean, a lot of people, myself included, said, you know, Texas is going to probably ride this on in. Well, they'll still be in the college football playoffs, but a lot of people were really anointing them as possibly the national champion, especially after the fact that Georgia had a close call against Kentucky, lost to Alabama. And, you know, I was joking with Georgia fans, you know, they're like, "Oh man, y'all lost to Tennessee." And I said, "Oh, well, you know, y'all lost to the team that lost to Vandy." So, I mean,
I felt really good. What's happening here? Cutting out.
You cut out. We could still hear your golden voice.
Yeah, I felt really good about Georgia in this game just because what you talked about, everybody was piling on Texas, and it just seemed like they hadn't really been tested this year. You know, Michigan, not what they used to be. So, I mean, yeah, they dominated Michigan, but Michigan is not Michigan.
Yeah.
So other than that, you know, they played kind of sloppy against Mississippi State. You know, they hadn't really played anybody. So Georgia comes in and basically punches you in the face. And how do you respond? And just the body language of Ewers and Arch Manning on the sidelines, it's like they were shell shocked. And, you know, and this is the defense we're used to seeing from Georgia, not the one we saw against Alabama. So, yeah, I mean, kudos to Georgia. They just went out there and dominated Texas on their home field.
Yeah. I mean, it was just unreal. And the fact that Texas, like, they just really put it on them. And, you know, really, it stakes the claim that, you know, a lot of people felt like when Oklahoma and Texas were coming in, that they were going to kind of just roll over to SEC, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
yeah, I mean, that game was a little bit of a dud, but yeah, let's get back to what Rich is here for, the NFL.
That's right. We're going to go ahead and get in some predictions. I'm sorry, I'm getting all of my notes that we have acquired. So the first game that we are actually going to talk about as far as predictions, Rich, it will be the Vikings and the Rams. And, you know, right now the Vikings are coming off a loss to Detroit, 31-29, last play of the game. Sam Darnold gets knocked down. And right now, Sam Darnold's having pretty much his career year. And you know, it's kind of feel-good story. You know, I don't care for the Vikings, but I do like Sam Darnold. And I'm happy he's succeeding. He has 66.5% of his passes are completed for a little over 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. And of course, you know, this is all due to the fact that he now fully has his complete receiving core. TJ Hawkinson, I believe, is coming back tonight, isn't he?
That's what I heard. I never saw the final, decision if he was active or not.
Well, I saw him on the gambling site, so I'm assuming that he's there. So
yeah, I mean, I know Nakua and Cup are both back tonight, so it should be a fun game.
Yeah, it's going to be a better game than what normally would happen. Now, I'm not really big on Matthew Stafford personally. I just think that he is ready to go ahead and ride off into the sunset and into a gold jacket eventually. But
wow, that's a bold call. Rich, do you agree with that?
I do think he's kind of on the tail end. of course, not having your top 2 wide receivers is going to affect your performance.
Mhm.
And so he hasn't looked good this year. He's only got 3 touchdown passes against 4 interceptions. That's not
Yeah.
great.
What about the
Um,
gold jacket part, though? Do you agree with that one?
oh, yeah, look, I mean, he's got Super Bowl. He's got some pretty good, block of seasons with great numbers. I don't know what the voting criteria is. I think we got a lot of quarterbacks that fit his profile in history. So it's kind of
Mhm.
tougher for a good quarterback, even a great quarterback, to get into the Hall of Fame. Someone with much worse performance back in the 70s would have got in.
Whose career would you have taken? I'm sorry, why did I get a brain fart? Oh, was it Eli Manning or Matthew Stafford?
Oh, Eli Manning for me.
Yeah.
Just
I mean,
because of the Super Bowls or career? Take out the Super
You're
Bowls.
okay. Well, if you're to go career, then you'd probably go Stafford. But I mean, let's be honest. You look at Eli Manning; he's the goat slayer. I mean, he's the guy that beat the goat 2 times.
Yeah,
So
I
you
think
don't-
he's.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Rich. I'm sorry.
I think he's more likely to get in than Stafford.
Yeah, I agree with
Because
that.
again, Stafford had a great career, great numbers, great performance, but there's a lot of quarterbacks out that match that.
Yeah.
Whereas Eli Manning's got some unique things that make him, famous, so to speak.
Very true. So who you got in this game, Ed?
I am actually going to go now that they got Nakua and Cup back. I kind of want to go Rams, but I think the Vikings are going to take this. They got it. They got all their offensive weapons back. I mean, if TJ Hawkinson does not play, big whoop. They still got Addison. They still got Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in the game right now. And that defense is by far one of the better defenses that really doesn't really get to do that they deserve. So I'm going to take the Vikings on this one.
Rich, what do you think?
Yeah, that's my pick. Like I said, Stafford's had some trouble. It's easy to attribute it to the receivers, but I do think he's not performing great. Plus, Puka's back. He just came off of the IR. Is he going to get full snaps? I don't know that they're going to use him, just like pick him up where he left off. Same thing with Cup. Just because they're back doesn't mean we're going to get instantly their peak performance. So I love Kyron Williams. I think he's a big difference maker, but Aaron Jones is great. The receiving core, like you mentioned, is great. So I'm going with Minnesota.
Man, I'm going to go against the grain here. I'm going to go with the Rams. I just like
controversy.
I know Stafford hasn't been playing great, but I've been noticing the Vikings secondary has been slipping the last couple of weeks. If you look at their rankings on pass defense, I believe they're 30th or 31st against the pass. They're great against the run, but not against the pass. So I'm going to go with the Rams.
Nice.
Just to be the contrarian.
No problem. Look, any given Sunday, right?
Right.
Any given Sunday.
Or Thursday.
Or Thursday. I like that.
Much better.
Next game up, Washington versus Chicago. Now, this isn't really because Says Me got on here. It's because really and truthfully, when I picked these games, Jay Daniels wasn't hurt yet. It was going to be one of those 1 versus 2 type games. Washington coming off a huge victory, 40-7, that he had really nothing to do with. Marcus Mariota came in, blew the lights off, looked like the player that was going to be the savior of the Tennessee Titans. Passed for 78.3% completions, 18 of 23, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns. Scary Terry McLaurin is still looking really good, and Zach Ertz is finding basically a fountain of youth right now. He's doing really good. Now, of course, Chicago, we got our dude now, Caleb Williams, 1,300 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, 5
Looking better every week.
Looking better every week. In fact, week 1, here's you some stats, Rich. He had a 55.7 passer rating that has since gone up to 124.4 in week 6. So the only other week that he had worse than his first week was, of course, that debacle that was against Houston. It's going to be I don't know if it's going to be as high a scoring game as most people think. I mean, this was the Panthers that Washington trounced, but I mean, at the same time, Marcus Mariota has proved that he can be a guy that holds up teams. I just don't see it because let's be real. The sideshow is going to be according to this, the rankings and everything, the Bears offense is ranked 29th. Washington's defense is in the 20s as well. And then you look at the defenses, both the defense for the Bears is third. The offense for the Commanders is third. So that's what you're going to see. What do y'all think?
I'll let Rich go first. He's the guest.
So you're looking at those numbers, saying how far back the Bears' offense is. A lot of that is the drag from those first few weeks, right? So if you looked at like just their last 4 games, they're going to rate much better.
Mm-hmm.
And I was dubious about Caleb. I didn't just get behind him because he was the new guy. I wanted to see him perform, and he's been. This is the best receiving core that the Bears have had in the history of the franchise.
Agreed.
And so that gives him, now that he's stepping up, he's able to hit those targets. Komet has just really come out as one of the better tight ends in the whole league. And Swift has finally found his footing. First few weeks he was looking terrible.
Yeah, looking much better.
Yeah, and regrettably, I cut him early from my fantasy team. And he's
I was going to say, Meb won't even put Komet in the starting lineup. Do you believe that, Rich? In his fantasy lineup?
Oh, he's in there now. He's in there.
Well, I'll tell you, but so you got Komet, you got Swift performing, you've got a great receiving core. Allen's back after a couple of weeks of injury. I think their defense is, we know it's fantastic. Their offense is performing better than that 30th rating that you touched on. I think it's the Bears.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. You picked the Bears also, right?
I want to pick the Bears too.
I agree. I don't know. I guess Jaden is still questionable, but most likely not to play.
Week to week with a rib injury.
Okay. So, I mean, I would love for him to play just because I think it'd be a really fun game with him in there. But, you talk about 2 quarterbacks of the future. We're looking at, 2 guys that are going to lead the charge going forward. I think the Bears defense, I just trust them more than the Commanders right now. Although I think Dan Quinn has done a fantastic job, and he would probably be my coach of the year right now.
Well, and, looking at that, because he, of course, is a defensive guru and everything like this, I have stats on that.
Yeah.
So 70.2 completion percentage since he has been the coach of the Commanders. They have allowed 12 touchdowns so far through the air. Only 4 teams have more than that. So Rush D is at 4.9 yards per carry, which is okay because we're only averaging 3.7 right now. But one of the next teams, the team that we're going to be talking about after this, the next game, one of them has the lowest. So that kind of foreshadows it. But like you said, Komet, he's just been killing it. Pretty much kept everything that is a target towards him. 29 targets, 26 receptions, 289 yards, 3 touchdowns. And
Adunze has really been stepping up lately.
Yes,
too.
he has. I mean, the future looks bright. I mean, you got DJ Moore, who, of course, is our number 1. Keenan Allen, if he can get off the sideline every time, then it would be great. But, it is what it is. But as far as that defense, a lot of people talk about, of course, TJ Edwards, of course, leading the team with tackles right now. It's actually, in my opinion, the one that really makes that defense what it is Javon Dexter, who right now has just been a man on a mission. He has 4 sacks already, which is incredible for a defensive tackle because normally you're fighting 2.
That is impressive.
2 1-on-2s all the time. You're double teamed all the time. So Dexter has been he was really good last year. He seemed to have stepped up his game, which also frees up Montez Sweat and Austin Booker on the outsides. It's going to be a great year.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with them. And we both said before the season the Bears were on the uptick big time. I mean, as long as Williams worked out, which so far it looks like he's going to, this is a team on the rise. And I mean, that whole division has just been superb.
All right, we basically have time for one more. We're at the 59-minute mark, and then like I said, I'm going to hit that one last question that we had. Rich dropped again, so maybe he'll come back on in a minute. Last one. This rivalry has been one that we have actually seen for decades. We're talking about the catch. We're talking about Joe Montana versus not Roger Staubach, but I guess Danny White, Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith. You got Jerry Rice. You got a whole bunch of goats. We are talking about a game that is very lustrous in its history, but not necessarily this year.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the luster has been taken out of this game by how Dallas has performed recently. Just when they get beat, man, they get beat down.
They get beat bad.
They get their money's worth. But yeah, like you said, the two teams that basically defined the 90s, when I was young, still a teenager, these two teams went at it. I think Deion Sanders, me being a Falcons fan.
Sorry again, fellas.
Oh, you're good, Rich.
Welcome back, Rich. Yeah, we're just talking about the Dallas-San Francisco kind of rivalry in the 90s and how, just premier it was back in those days, but not so much this year.
Right.
But, I mean, I just don't know what to make of this Cowboy team. I mean, are they like the Jets and they're just kind of dead in the water at this point, or do they still have some hope?
Oh, there's no hope.
Yeah.
And not in my eyes. I mean, what I alluded to when we were talking about the Chicago Bears and everything, like you said, this is I alluded up to the history of this rivalry. And, of course, you have Terrell Owens, posing the middle of the star. You have the catch. You have, of course, all those NFC championship games for 4 straight years where they played each other each year. And, I mean, it was a slugfest each time.
Amazing rivalry.
And then you look at what's going on now. I mean, it's a tale of two different things. One, you have all the injuries that San Francisco's dealing with. Two, you have a owner that just cannot mess with his team any more than he's had to. You got people that are getting overpaid. You got on one team, you got a guy, John Lynch. Like I said, it's really with the 49ers, it's just the injuries that they've had.
Yeah.
Like half of their starters are down. And, you look at it, it's like Saving Private Ryan. People are just laid all over the field. And, it ain't Brock Purdy's fault, even though he hasn't really helped that much too. Right now, he's having his worst year so far.
I thought he started out pretty well, but, the last couple of weeks he's come back down to earth. But like you're saying, I think there's still plenty of optimism for the 49ers once they get some guys healthy. But kind of the opposite for the Cowboys. I feel like in that division,
they just need to blow it up.
Yeah, they are in trouble.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what they were thinking, not going out and getting a running back in the offseason. That's something that is going to continue to haunt them, just every game this year.
Right now, they are dead last in rushing, which, whenever you think of a Dallas Cowboys team, that's not something you normally think of. They are averaging just 3.5 yards per carry.
Rich, what do you make of that decision not to bring in somebody to compete at least with Rico Dowdle? He's still there?
Yeah, he's there.
Okay.
I mean, we thought it was a bad decision.
I mean, it just baffles me. This
Can
is the
you
Dallas.
hear me, guys?
Yeah, we got you now.
Sorry about that. All right. So I was going to say, it really is baffling that they what they've been doing with their backfield. They got rid of Elliott. They brought him back. Well, so what was that all about? Then Rico, I think, is got potential, but they're not building around him, not giving him a chance to really kind of develop. And then, Pollard, why did they let him go? Maybe it was a money thing, but it was like they've just been making bad decision after bad decision in the backfield.
Yeah.
And
it's been a disaster.
And it's hurting them because I believe in complementary football. And I think this year is really showing how important that is because defenses are catching up on the passing attack.
Yeah.
And so you got to give them something else to deal with, and that's a good run game, and they don't have it. So it's hurting their passing game.
So who you got in this game?
Oh, it's going to be the 49ers. I mean, really and truthfully, it's not the offense. They still have the second-ranked offense in the league. So, I mean, it's just they can't stop.
I mean, I think part of that is they get down by so much, they just start throwing it all over the field, and rack up some second half points. But, man, this team, you just gave all that money to Prescott. What is Prescott, 32?
Yeah.
Well, he's
in his 30s.
Yeah.
I don't know his exact age, but, I mean, I understood CeeDee Lamb getting his bag.
Well, yeah, CeeDee Lamb.
In the top 3 receivers right now. I mean, hell, a lot of people were picking him number 2 in fantasy leagues. So, I mean, and that really adds to it. But The defense is actually top. I don't understand how the 49ers are 3-4 right now. I really don't.
It's a tough schedule.
Yeah, but I mean, you got Jordan Mason who has 95.3 yards per game. You got,
I mean, Debo's had a pretty good. Well, when he's healthy, he's had some good games. Jawan Jennings had a good game. And just the 49ers, I think that system, kind of like Kansas City, they can plug in guys and still get production, unlike a lot of teams.
but 10 players on the IR.
That's why they're 3-4.
Yeah, I mean they're scraping their third stringer at this point. But yeah,
I think both Jennings and Ayuk are out, right? And then
I believe Jennings is out. Actually, he was questionable.
Juwan Jennings.
Their number one and number two, their backup running back is out. The guy who stepped up and got all these great numbers, now he's out.
Yeah.
So it's just really, really, it just is what it is. Maybe it's going to tank their season, but they still have the talent. It's just not on the field, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at least Pearsall came back last week, after being shot in the preseason. So he came back at a good time with these guys going out.
Very, very true. He took it like a champ too. I mean, how manly are you if you get shot in the chest and you walk yourself to your stretcher? I mean,
I don't like Florida Gators, but that's pretty manly.
That's extremely manly. He definitely has taken my man card. But
was it Brian Robinson last year getting shot like 5 or 6 times
in his legs for carjacking? I mean, these guys are otherworldly as far as that goes. Just real quick note, Dak Prescott, richest contract in all of NFL, has rewarded him with a QBR rating of 48.9.
Yeah, I like Dak. He seems like a good guy. It just
seems well.
It's a bad situation there. It's getting kind of toxic there.
Yeah, it's
so as far as this game, you got the Niners, obviously. Rich, I mean, any doubt in your mind? Niners.
I got Niners. Of course, I wouldn't be surprised if they can't get it done because of, like we were talking about, the injuries. But I still think they're a better team right now.
Yeah, I guess I'll complete the hat trick. Yeah, all three of us, Niners.
Yeah, I'm gonna say all three of us are the Niners on that one. Because we're running a little late. Typically, we would actually talk a couple college games. Are you down with not doing that?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so
Tom.
And besides, Seth told me before we got on, he was like, there wasn't really that much. So we're scraping the bottle. But there is one last question, and Latina and Callie actually asked us, do the players from the 70s and 80s seem healthier than nowadays? Now, I can actually say this because I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. No. Today, a lot back then players played because they had no choice but to. If you did not play, you played hurt. Yeah. Truth be honest, and Seth is probably tired of me saying this, but I don't remember half of my senior year in high school because I played with concussions. Yeah. And you already kind of knew what the questions were and everything like that. But my body is pretty beat up, and I played all the way up to where I was 21. And, I finally realized that, hey, my genetics is not going to help me out. And of course, as soon as I quit playing, my genetics popped in from my dad. And it was like, oh, now you had the size of a football player. It's rough. And, back in those days, you basically, you just tried to play through it. You tried to make your money. You tried to do what you could. There wasn't many players like Jim Brown who were financially secure and could go into Hollywood and start having movie roles and make money that way. Mm-hmm. A lot of players back in those days, they typically had 2 jobs, and, you weren't making the money that you make now. And, nowadays they're with the helmets being custom fitted to your skull and stuff like that. You got brand new pads. You got basically doctors 24/7 now that will sit there, and their whole deal is to actually make sure you don't get hurt. And I wish that I had some of the stuff that I see kids have nowadays from when I played, because I wouldn't be having headaches 23 years after my last down. I wouldn't have moments where I can't remember what I ate the day before. I wouldn't be having these problems probably because I would have had a helmet that actually fit my little head at the time. Yeah. So me personally, y'all could say what y'all want. I think Mike Webster, Hall of Fame center for the Steelers back in their glory years, committed suicide because of the problems that he suffered with CTE or PCTE, which is post-concussion syndrome, something I suffer from. So, no, I'll say it like that. 70s, 80s, you were basically told, if you're not playing, you're not a man.
Yeah.
And that was just the way it was. And it even went into the 90s. And I would say even the early 2000s. Yeah. What's your ideas on that, gentlemen?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. You know, the back in the day, it was, you know, they were tough guys and they weren't playing for the millions. And so they played through the injuries. I mean, you know, look, Peyton, who's my favorite player of all time, he's known for having been dependent on painkillers. You know, he played, you know, he only missed one game his rookie season, and he played for 12 years straight through. But there's plenty of games where he stepped on the field, got a few carries, and then went off because he was playing through injuries. He was just determined to be out there. Well, they don't let that happen nowadays. You know, there's a lot of guys who got some kind of injury and they sit out, load management, whatever you want to call it. That's because the league requires it. You know, they're like, we're not. The guy might be in better shape than on IR than an active player was back in the 80s, but they're putting him on IR just because they want to avoid long-term effects of those injuries, as well as protecting their investment so he can get back on the field. So there's that too. But yeah, the excess care and medical treatment and time off that players get nowadays is because of what we've learned from what guys went through in the past.
Yeah, I mean, perfect example, Malik Neighbors the last couple of weeks. I mean, if you saw him go down, I can't remember who they were playing a couple weeks ago, didn't look bad at all. You know, it's kind of his head bounced off the turf a little bit. But, you know, they keeping him out for 2 weeks for a concussion, you know, that just would have been unheard of back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, you got to protect your investment. We're talking about a guy that, you know, outside of Justin Jefferson and maybe one or two other guys, this guy is the future at wide receiver. So they're just so careful these days. I mean, Tua supposedly about to come back. You know, it's just one of those things where one more concussion for that guy, and I think he's done. You know, so
I think he should stop now.
Yeah.
Personally,
so it's I mean, I agree with both of you. You know, 70s and 80s. I just started watching in the 80s, probably, which I've told you, Med, 85. That Super Bowl run by the Bears was like my first memory of professional football, watching them beat down the Patriots. But yeah, it's just a completely different day and age with, you know, what they can do technology wise and the medical care that these guys are getting. So yeah, I mean, it's a great thing. I mean, you mentioned the guy committing suicide. I mean, Junior Seau, one of the best defensive players I can remember from my childhood. I don't know about you, Rich. Do you play Tecmo Bowl growing up?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. I love being Junior Seau on defense. Yeah. I mean, just
unstoppable on defense.
But yeah, I mean, it's
him and Derek Thomas.
It's just a huge difference, and I'm glad they're doing that for the players. But
yeah,
I do miss some of these just vicious, you know, headhunters. You know, guys like Steve Atwater, guys out there,
Rodney Harrison,
looking to take you out.
Yeah,
that was just some entertaining plays, just dangerous plays.
Right. I think that they've kind of I think they've overcompensated. Hopefully they can recalibrate. You know, we don't want, you know, guys like Lester Hayes who are headhunters, but we also get a little bit too, you know, guy makes a sack, he kind of lands on top of the quarterback, and suddenly what was a game-changing sack becomes a game-changing 15-yard penalty.
Exactly.
I'm trying to remember, maybe one of y'all can help me out. It was either last week or the week before, a defensive lineman comes in, and it almost, you could see him let up when he was about to tackle the quarterback because he didn't want to land on him. So he just kind of pushed him, and the quarterback was able to maintain his footing, rolled out, and completed a pass down the field. I can't remember who that was, but that was just an example of a guy coming in, you know, kind of unblocked, and he was almost afraid, you know, to really unleash on the quarterback because of the penalty possibility. Do either of you guys remember that, or have you seen that?
Yeah, I don't remember the play specifically, but I certainly, you know, I've seen stuff where guys are plowing into the quarterback instead of tackling him because they don't want to go down with him.
Right. Yeah, they don't want to put their body weight on him, and then the quarterback
I'll say as a matter of fact, there was that interception, that the pick six that Love threw. Was it 2 weeks ago, maybe?
Mhm.
He was in the end zone. He got clocked with a power hit, and I was like, why didn't the guy tackle him? But
Right.
since he hit him, he wanted to just knock him down, and unfortunately, it turned out to be a pick six for him. But
Yeah.
that was an example of the guy just trying to plow into him and not actually wrap him and go
Mhm.
down with him because he didn't want the penalty.
Yeah, I completely agree with Rich. They have to recalibrate, some of these
No,
things.
no, definitely.
Because it just,
Well, they nerf defenses.
yeah.
I mean,
It's like you're thinking so much as a defensive player, like, where can I strike this guy, that it takes away from their ability to do their job.
Right.
and like y'all were just saying, and you basically nailed it right there, is that whenever you play defense, and I was defensive end and I played left guard, you react. In defense, you react. In offense, you have two advantages right from the get-go. You know where the ball is going, and you know when it's getting snapped. Defense, you have no advantages. You just react to what's going on offense. And yeah, you're talking about a little tackle box that, at one time was basically the body, and now it's shrinking down. It's kind of like the strike zone in the Major League Baseball, where they're trying to make it to where it's like they want the offense to hit a home run every single play. And it's frustrating for me as a defensive player. That's why when people are like, oh man, that game was boring, it was only 3-7. Hell, I loved it. Like, yeah, finally I get to see my boys, hit someone. But, at the same time, a lot of people don't realize that with the concussions, that movie Concussion with Will Smith, that was probably one of the defining moments as far as like people really taking account with health. And a lot of people don't really realize it's not the big hits that really cause the issues. It's the small hits that you usually have. That's why a lot of people like, what's his name? Cleveland's left tackle, Joe Thomas. He even said that he can't remember what he stuffed like 15-20 minutes before that sometimes.
Wow.
And it's because you constantly get those hits on your head because you're in the trenches. And a lot of people, they see the big hits, they think that that's the issue. It's not. It's repeated hits. So other than that, Rich, by all means, tell everyone that we got right now where they can find you, sir.
All right. Yeah. Thanks again for having me on, guys. So, if you find me on X, it's easy. At says_me1. That links out to my YouTube channel. I've only got one set of videos, but it was a labor of love, passion project. I did the greatest running back of all time video series. I'd love it if you check it out, leave some comments, tell me what you think. I intend to do the same thing for quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends. But it's a labor intensive effort. So if anyone's interested, go check it out. Check me out on X and over at blitzsportsmedia.com. I kind of get an article up about once a week. And thanks for having me on, guys. It was great talking with you. Looking forward to it. Yeah, looking to talking to you on X.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And also a special shout out to Latina and Callie. Basically has stuck with us throughout the whole episode. We actually got our first donation from them.
Wow.
So I won't say what it was, but thank you.
Thank you.
And also at the same time, thank you. I'll let my wife know. Thank you for saying, how awesome she is. She puts up with me. So, I mean, that's your plus.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah. So anyway, that will do it for tonight. Rich, if you want to talk to us for a couple minutes afterwards, more than welcome. And
all right.
Thanks again, Rich.
This is it.
Yeah, Seth, Ed, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Later, y'all.
Can't accept the loss, I'm hard-headed. There's a little bit of madness to my method. Many falling off that fine line that I'm treading. I risk anything to be great, and I'm not letting nobody rob me of my victory. Number one, that's what I'm meant to be. When by any means, only thing that makes sense to me, I can make nice or make history. I got that dog in me, yeah. Turn me up, big energy, got the crowd going nuts. I got that dog in me, yeah. I take on anyone, I don't need the one-on-one. I got that dog in me, yeah. I'm talking all bite, no bark. I could rip your squad apart. I got that dog in me. So what's up? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what's up?